All right. Hello. Welcome to the Outsider Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, AJ Churchill. Today we're talking with director Michael Hoanshelt and producer Garrett Woods. They are the team behind the movie The Rise of Multiplayer. It's the first feature 3 years in the making for them, built while they juggled professional videography work, full-time work apart from this project. And the film asks a simple question with a big answer. How did multiplayer games become the social fabric for so many of us all around the world? The two of them have already sat down with people from ArenaNet, the creators of Guild Wars, Epic Games, the makers of Fortnite, Microsoft slash 343 Studios or Halo Studios, and they're launching a Kickstarter in early September 2025 to bring their project across the finish line with streaming distribution in their sites as well. If they hit their stretch goal, they will head to Korea to trace modern esports back all the way to StarCraft Brood War. The film is The Rise of Multiplayer. Michael, Garrett, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, starting off a little bit before we get to the movie, when you guys think of multiplayer in your own lives, like what comes to mind? I don't know if there's a feeling, a memory, a game, a person. Maybe you guys can take me there.
For me, I remember playing Halo Combat Evolved on the original Xbox with my brother, and that for sure is probably like some of the best memories for me. Just kind of doing like a co-op campaign, and like we would try to beat the game together. And I just remember I don't know, it just kind of brought like a camaraderie between us. And we would try on like the easy mode, then we'd do like medium, then like legendary or whatever like the hardest mode was. And it was just like super cool to be able to like kind of achieve something together. And like even that game itself is just kind of like crazy because they have like the flood and stuff, which is like zombies or something. I don't know. But that was cool because it was kind of scary. And me and my brother were like a little scared. We're like, what's going on? But yeah, man, I don't know. That game like really sticks out to me for sure. Like the original Xbox, spent a lot of time on that. I played a lot of Tony Hawk Pro Skater for the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of fun. And that was a time where like skateboarding was like kind of big, in the early 2000s. So I think that led to like me wanting to hang out with more skateboarder people and stuff like that. So like it was really interesting because I would even like learn some like skateboarding tricks from the game somehow. I'd like watch how
Mm-hmm.
the characters were like animated and I would like try to copy it. Cause like I think that was like probably before YouTube was like really big. So I wasn't like looking up, YouTube videos on like how to skateboard and stuff. So in a weird way, like I was kind of learning from the game. And then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that was definitely really big for me. Played a lot of the Dragon Ball Z games for the PlayStation as well. Those
Uh-huh.
were really, really fun. Spent a lot of time in those bad boys. So, yeah, I think that's just a little bit of what I got into.
Amazing. Actually, when you said Combat Evolved, that was literally like I remember when my dad brought my brother home an Xbox and we had one game. It was Halo Combat Evolved. And so that
Hmm.
basically for me as well defined probably like a good 6 years of my life from like middle school all the way to the end of high school, brought my friends together. And actually I played Tony Hawk Pro Skater too. That was also a lot of fun. It's interesting that you mentioned how you were like learning from the game, learning skateboarding moves from that game. I've read about like real professional football soccer players who will literally like learn moves from their avatars like within the FIFA
Wow.
games, or I guess now FC I forget the name, they changed it, but yeah, Garrett, did you I mean, what does multiplayer mean to you as the producer of this film and in your life? What does it kind of bring to you?
Yeah, I actually have three older brothers. So when I grew up, there's always video games in our house. We're always playing together, different types of games. I think probably one of my oldest memories of multiplayer with them was GoldenEye, actually. on Nintendo 64. So we would play split screen, and there's always a like a battle of say, hey, no, the screen looking, or no looking at what I'm doing or whatever. And there's always lots of banter back and forth. So that was a lot of fun for me growing up. And another kind of early online multiplayer game I played was StarCraft 1 and Warcraft 3.
Mm-hmm.
Since again, I have older brothers. I kind of got into it when I was pretty young, actually playing with them, and it was fun playing online in the dial-up days. And oh my goodness, dial-up internet was not the best for online, but it worked. It did its job. So, but yeah, anytime anybody picked up the phone, it's just like, oh, I guess there goes my game, and I lost. So, oh
Uh-huh.
well.
That's amazing.
But
I was
yeah.
born and raised in Brazil. We didn't I don't remember going through that dial-up phase in Brazil, but my dad is American, and I would go up to northern Michigan. And northern Michigan was like completely wild. Like there was, 500 people and like 1,000 deer in the place that we would go to. So there was dial-up internet, and it was the exact same problem all the time. In fact, we only got like internet good enough to game probably like 3 years ago there, personally. Other people, in northern Michigan, I'm sure got it before that. So this is your guys' first feature, and you both have worked full time in the corporate video space for that's what you guys do, and you're both self-taught. So what was it that gave you guys the confidence to go out and tell this story, tackle this big cultural history of multiplayer games? Like when did you feel like, okay, we have to make this? Like maybe Michael, you can go first.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think it was Garrett and I were just talking, and we're like, hey, like we want to make a movie, you know, and movies are really hard to make, like very hard. Uh, and I think something we're like, okay, like maybe we do documentary. That'd be cool. It's a little easier. That's kind of, I have a lot of experience in like interviewing people and like doing that kind of thing. And Garrett was like, well, like, what if we do video games? It's like we live in Seattle, you know, Garrett was like, hey, like, my brother works in the gaming industry. We live in the area. Like, what if we tried doing something around that, And we kicked around some ideas and stuff like, hey, like, what's it about? And I think, Garrett, you were the one that kind of came up with the first, like, one-page treatment for this, right? For the multiplayer thing. Um, and I
That's right.
think our original title or the kind of working title was making multiplayer mainstream was kind of the thing. And, Garrett came up with a really cool log line was it's all the rage and nobody knows about it. So, or something along those lines. So it was kind of an interesting take. It was like, hey, like, let's talk about this multiplayer thing. Like, no one's really like super talking about it, in terms of like a documentary, like what, could we do? And I can, Garrett, if you want to like fill in anything you can, but I think it's been like 3 years since our first interview. And it's been kind of a grind in the sense of like, we'll reach out to people, maybe not hear anything, or we'll interview somebody. And it's just such a big topic. It's taken us 3 years to really nail down like what the story is for us and like how much we want to kind of focus on the social side and whatnot. But anyways, Garrett, if you want to add in, feel free.
Yeah. So the just like Michael said, we kind of just came up with an original treatment and the original title, making multiplayer mainstream. When I came up with that title was mostly about how multiplayer is like so ingrained now in the fabric of gaming and gaming culture. Even some of the biggest games on like Twitch and stuff are multiplayer games. A lot of esports games like Fortnite or Valorant or League of Legends, lots of different multiplayer games. So there's something that draws people to multiplayer, uh, even more so often than I think single player games these days. And so we kind of really wanted to investigate that. Since my oldest brother, as Michael said, is in the video game industry, I thought, maybe we can get some connections from him and we'll just see how it goes. We'll try to get some interviews and get somewhere with it. And so he helped us out. He did me a solid by putting out our casting call. and that got us started with some of the first people that we interviewed, and then from there we started just interviewing different people by networking through the people that we had already interviewed. Because when they saw what we were doing and saw this kind of not only a positive message about video games, but also just the fact that they could relate, and they're like, "Man, I remember the couch co-op days, and oh yeah, I played this game with my brother or this game with my sister or whatever." It's like these people really understood what we were going for, and so they were really happy to help us, and it was just really awesome seeing that. And so over time, we kind of developed the idea more and more, and just doing this on the side, and we finally really kind of dissected. Okay, what is multiplayer? What is the thing that we really want to focus on? Because we could go anywhere with this, and so we kind of came up with this core concept that we have now, which is about the social connection really behind multiplayer video games, and kind of that perspective from developers, and kind of what kind of their hopes and aspirations about what they want to make, what kind of experience they want to make for players experiencing these games together as a community. So yeah, that's just kind of what we've gotten over the years. So it's just been kind of a grind, like Michael said.
All right. So, Garrett, you mentioned that your brother works at Riot and how much that helped you kind of unlock a few doors and get the first interviews rolling. Um, I don't know if you can mention like if there was any interview that for you as the producer was the hardest to unlock. Has it gotten easier over time as the project has progressed? Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you went about sourcing your interviews.
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. So, the first interviews that we got came directly from my brother's work on like LinkedIn. So he posted our casting call basically after we put it up there, and people just saw it and they're like, "Oh, what's this? I'm interested." And so we got like a couple of interviews. I think first one that we got was actually Christian Allen, film Epic Games, Red Storm. He's been at a couple different studios, and he ended up being a really fantastic interview. He obviously knows a lot of stuff about video games, so it's super cool. He has got a lot of really cool experiences. So, uh, doing that interview, I think, really helped encourage us because we're like, man, there's a really good story here, and man, if we just get the right connections, we can really do something really cool. So from there, we started trying to network more with people that we were meeting. Um, not only through the interviews that we had, but also Michael actually started working. That's when he started working at his current like marketing firm. After that, and he got a few connections actually through that helped encourage us and kept us thinking, oh, let's see what we can do. And then as we started filming more people, from my brother as well as just from networking and stuff, we had more footage that we could show people. So we're like, okay, now this isn't just like some cool idea or whatever. It's like, who are these random people asking me to do some documentary? I don't even know what you're talking about. It actually became really easy to reach out to people because they're like, "Hey, check this out. This is what we've done so far. This is what we're going for and what we want to do. What do you think about it?" And people are like, "Oh, wow, this is actually really cool. I actually like this idea a lot." And so when people kind of had like this visual representation of what we were doing, people could see the vision. They're like, "Okay, I can get behind that. I can be a part of that. That's really cool." So that made it way easier once we got the first number of interviews going, and yeah, it's just been going a lot smoothly since then. We have so many other connections we haven't even pursued just because we have so many people now in terms of our network that we're just trying to figure out, okay, we're the first people we need to kind of reach out to once we try and get this, Kickstarter up, we get the funding or whatever. What are we going to do? What's the first kind of step after that? Because we just have a lot of connections now, which is really awesome. So kind of went from a little bit of a famine to now we're kind of like overwhelmed a little bit by how much people are excited about it. But that really encourages us, especially as filmmakers, because we could see people really believe in the message and the vision of what we're doing, which is really cool. So I'm glad it resonates so much with people.
That's awesome. Um, so you guys are, based in the Pacific Northwest. Your brother's over there at Riot. You're surrounded by studios and kind of the esports scene. Uh, how did this like region kind of shape what you were able to film? Um, could you have made this film if you guys lived in like Los Angeles or some other city, Michael?
You kind of broke up a tiny bit. Do you mind restating the
Yeah,
question?
yeah. So I mentioned that you guys are, based in the Pacific Northwest. You're surrounded by tons of studios, esports scenes. Could this film have been made if you guys lived in LA or some other place, maybe without that Riot connection?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it probably would have been way harder. Like, honestly, it's super interesting, like, how many people, like, we just might know through, like, one or two points of connection that work in video games. It's crazy. Like, I think that, like, since the tech space is so big up here, like, for an example, I was out at dinner with my wife at a restaurant in Seattle, and I kind of overheard the person next to me, like, mention that he worked in video games, and I was like, okay, I kind of want to shoot my shot here, if it's like the right time and appropriate. I just kind of want to be like, hey, like, I'm working on this project. But anyways, I ended up doing that. And it turned out this guy, like, he's worked on the Lord of the Rings games, like he's worked on Forza, like he's a character artist. And he's, worked at all these like, big studios. And it's just like, man, like, I mean, I imagine it's similar to like living in Los Angeles and you like run into like filmmakers or something. But up here, it's just like, so many people know, like, I feel like everyone we know probably knows somebody that works in video games or at least a couple points of connections down. Um, and I think that's been very, very helpful for us from like a production side. We don't really have to travel much. Seattle's like less than an hour for both of us. So when we're doing interviews and stuff, it's not like we have to drive like 3 or 4 hours and do an interview or B-roll or see a studio. So I think that's been really big for us. Is one, we don't have to travel. We don't have to fly anywhere. Everything's here. And like from a point of like making connections, it hasn't been too difficult, you know. The biggest thing like Garrett kind of mentioned was like a little bit of credibility, because as people are working professionals, they may not want to, like, they don't know what we're going to do with the footage. So, they may be like, well, like, I don't know, what's a project about? Because in the beginning, the project could have been about anything. But now that we're kind of like more solidified in our story and just kind of the approach, I think uh, that makes it easier for that. So hopefully I didn't like ramble too much, but yeah, definitely
Not at all.
the our area has been like huge for us, like for sure.
Very interesting. So I mean, as we've already covered, there's so many modes of multiplayer gaming. You've got your multiplayer online battle arenas, MOBAs, like League of Legends, Dota. You have massively multiplayer online games, MMOs, like World of Warcraft or Guild Wars. Then you've got esports, FIFA, Rocket League, local co-op games, couch co-op games, split screen, asynchronous strategy games, synchronous strategy games. How did you guys like choose where to focus all your time and research for this film? Was it dependent on the people that you're able to interview, or was it more you kind of decided we want to focus on this area, or are you just doing broad spectrum? Like what kind of multiplayer games does the rise of multiplayer tackle, Garrett?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our approach, if usually the way documentary filmmaking goes is there's usually two types of documentaries primarily that people kind of create, which is either a human interest story, we kind of follow like a key character, a key person, or you do something topical. So some specific topic and you get experts around a topic or whatever you want to talk about to kind of tell that story. So when we were making this, we are thinking, I don't know if I want to do like a human interest story. Let's do something topical. And we had done some research about seeing what other documentaries about video games people have already created because we wanted to make something different. We didn't want to make something that's already been made somewhere. So that once we kind of looked at the other documentaries out there, we decided, okay, well, we want to try to approach this topically, but we need to, focus in on this whole multiplayer idea. I feel like there's something in it that we want to kind of approach. And at first, we didn't know what that was. We were kind of unclear about, okay, what in multiplayer did we want to focus on? So when we started doing interviews, we asked specific questions about certain topics. So we asked people about like their favorite memories from like LAN party or couch co-op gaming or whatever, and then we asked them about development because we were focusing a lot on developers. We wanted to hear kind of this insider baseball about, what did they do every day? Like, what does it look like to make video games now? And what are your experiences in the past making video games? And so when we started doing that, we started hearing really cool stories and really cool perspectives that actually helped us as we were listening to this kind of guide the message toward asking more and more focused questions in the further interviews that we did. So as we went along, the next interview would be even more focused or would have certain things that we remember asking that were like, oh yeah, we should ask that again, or maybe we should change this question or whatever. So over time, we went from this kind of really broad spectrum kind of idea down to this more like narrow focus idea around this social connection part. And originally it wasn't, we didn't know what it was going to be about, but we were like, oh, social connection. That's the thing that I think will resonate the most with people because isn't that what multiplayer is? It's about connecting with other people, right? That's like the core premise of the whole thing. And then not only that, we thought, the one interesting part about it is the technology. Like, how is that even enabled? How could people even play like an MMORPG? Like you were saying, like Guild Wars. How did they even make that possible? Like, how are you putting thousands of people on a server, and how are you making these really complex video games? So over time, we basically have narrowed our focus a lot more on this kind of dual uh, perspective of the social part and the technology part about this social thing we call video games. And one thing that I think really helped us the most, and Michael can attest to this, is one of the people that we interviewed at ArenaNet, Colin Johansson. When we were asking him about, hey, do you think this is kind of like a new social media or whatever? Because that's one of the ideas that we had gotten while we were doing interviews. And he said, actually, I think video games started social media. I think they pioneered this whole idea of social media. That video games were doing this way before anything else. And it's just like Michael was saying, like he was learning how to do skateboard moves on a video game before YouTube was a thing. And just the whole idea behind like video game guilds and like friends and all this types of stuff and games, even going all the way back to like StarCraft 1 and Warcraft 3. I remember like having people on my friends list or whatever and playing with different people. Like you can create communities literally around, these video games. And that was before social media really took off. And that's just something that I think really helped us to understand, okay, this is a really cool idea. I think we need to kind of focus on this concept that video games are the pioneer of this kind of full social media and creating communities online thing. I think that's really unique and really cool. And so ever since then, we kind of just been kind of developing that concept basically around the film.
That was a very interesting comment that I saw in your guys' trailer about how like multiplayer gaming was the prototype for then social media, friend groups, and that kind of thing. I had never thought of that. That's really fascinating. You mentioned that a big part of your guys' film, apart from the social focus of it, is the technological side. And you guys interviewed Andy Montgomery from Microsoft's like AI and Azure team, and he drew a line sort of from the GPU, the graphics arms race in games, to a kind of a virtuous cycle where player demand pushes graphics, better GPUs expand what developers can build, and then those gains spill into maybe AI and other fields. Um, so in your guys' reporting, in your documentary, have you found out kind of how does that cycle actually work? Like the game to real, AI or even other tech pipeline. I don't know if Michael wants to take this or Garrett.
Yeah, I can go. And then Garrett, if you want to touch on it, you can. Um, Honestly, we haven't gotten the chance to really dive into this too much yet. And this is kind of, I don't know if I'm skipping too far forward, but this is kind of one of the reasons for the Kickstarter too, is to allow us to really dive into some of these facets of this huge topic. Yeah, I'm trying to think, is Andy the only one that's really mentioned it, Garrett? Is that right?
I think Thomas. So we talked to Thomas too,
Yeah,
and
we
he
talked to Thomas
mentioned
Filbert.
AI
That's
and
true.
GPUs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but kind of more specifically from like a non-game developer perspective, Andy's like the only one, I think. Um, But anyways, it is really interesting, to me and Garrett, because it's like how many in like what areas of life has video games touched, like either directly or indirectly, that are like massively changing the way that we just live life, you know? Or even just like, I mean, I don't know if we can credit video games to like ChatGPT, but like maybe video games played a part in that. And that's pretty crazy. And that's gonna shake up like, I mean, who knows? It might change industries, it might get rid of industries. I have no idea. But that's definitely an area that we're really excited to dive into.
Uh, One thing I'll say is that with the technology side, specifically with things that are kind of more on the hyper technical side, like AI and stuff like that. Just like Michael said, we haven't dove too much into that side. We've done a lot more about like the game development, kind of the technical part of that, but we do want to touch on some of these topics that orbit around video games because I think that that's like the bigger picture, right? Video games are like a touchstone of like social aspects and connection in our culture, and there's so many things that orbit around that though that people don't think about, that that again, it's all the rage, nobody knows about it, right? Like there's very few people who probably know that video games actually help develop GPUs because it pushed this kind of continuous iteration and development of more powerful GPUs for videos, or for video games and graphics rendering, that and it ended up creating these powerful computer components that can now be used in these AI server farms, neural networks, all that kind of stuff. And that's super crazy to think about that. You're like, video games, this little thing I was doing, playing Mario Kart when I was a kid or whatever, is like somehow shaping the world and how we do industry and stuff. That's kind of crazy to think about,
That
but
is crazy.
it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of like funding there and a lot of money, and it's just it's obviously where people have this demand and stuff in video games, I think is only going to increase. For one, we were looking at the statistics or whatever about there's a lobbying agency who does stuff for like video game developers for Congress and stuff in the United States, and one of their statistics basically is that over half the world is going to be gamers, or has become gamers, and it's only going to increase. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. It's like 50% of the world playing video games. Like, okay, now I understand how big a thing this is. This is really big. So, yeah, just industries and stuff like that developing because of video games. I think that's going to be a really interesting component to our feature film that I think we'll want to touch on, kind of as the bigger picture, like messaging or concept.
Hmm. No, it's. I think that's. It's really interesting to see just how widespread this is. I mean, I was mentioning to you guys off the recording that I live in Tashkent, Uzbekistan right now, and it's really cool to. It's crazy how many LAN houses I see. I was born and raised in Brazil. LAN houses were a big part of my youth, going with my friends to play Counter-Strike and Battlefield 1942, Battlefield Vietnam, like whatever they had there. Um, and it feels like now, like even a place like Uzbekistan in that's a developing country, there's so many of these places because people can't really afford maybe a personal computer of their own, but they really want to play. And so people congregate in these LAN houses, these internet cafes to game with each other. And it's awesome. I actually haven't been to one yet, but I'm going to before I leave here. So you guys mentioned, we've talked about how the technology that enables multiplayer games and gaming in general has potentially changed the world through the development of GPUs that then, led to the development of AI and making that possible. But maybe talk about the social side. Like if a skeptic asked for proof of the claim that you guys make that multiplayer changed the world, um, what would you guys show them?
Yeah, I mean, I think Garrett kind of touched on it. When we interviewed Colin Johansson, I think that was like kind of a turning point for me because when he like directly compared like video games to social media, I was just like, oh, this is crazy, you know? And something that, we kind of ask now in terms of questions for developers is like, when you think of social media, you think of Instagram, you think of Facebook, Snapchat, I'm sure there's a lot of others, but you never think of like Fortnite, or Minecraft as like social media. I mean, like how many millions of like people play these games? It's insane, and they have their primary social interactions over these games you know? And I think a lot of people, maybe older generations may think that video games kind of waste time or like you're not social on them or you're just inside or whatever. But I think there's so many stories out there that we want to capture of people that, either have met friends or loved ones like over video games and that have deepened relationships through that. Even some people like work on their social skills through playing video games, you know? So it's not only just like a numbers thing, which I think is important, but just showing the scale of like how many people are interacting on these platforms. But it's also like there are individual stories that I hope we get to capture through the film is of people like literally working on their social skills through playing video games and through interacting with people. So yeah, I don't know if Garrett, if you want to touch on that too.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool things about this social component of video games because there's lots of different expressions of that. There's people who obviously streaming's really big nowadays, right? Like there's lots of people who will just watch someone else play a video game and it actually creates a kind of like a center point for people to kind of gather around and it's like a campfire, right? Like everybody gather around the campfire and talk about the newest WoW update or whatever, or, whatever people are playing. And that's just really cool that that people can now socialize around video games. But more so to the point that Michael was making, of people playing these video games, interacting with each other. You can see games like Fortnite. They have millions of people who play these games. That's just crazy, right? Like there's literally millions of people playing the same game together. And I know that from having siblings, like just growing up and playing games online is really a way to stay connected with like your friends and family members. Like I still play video games with my brothers online together. We play like Marvel Rivals and stuff because that's just a way of staying connected, especially, not living together, anymore. It's just become a way of like, it's almost like a phone call, but more interactive because we get to do something together and it's just a lot of fun. So, I think that there's these personal stories, like Michael said, that are really powerful. And we've definitely talked to people who've shared really cool stories, like the people that University of Washington, we interviewed their esports team and they were sharing how even I think one of the girls who was on the team, she was saying how she didn't even play video games very much except for like Roblox and stuff. And then when she got to college, she actually started. She joined the esports team and actually started connecting with people through playing games like Valorant and Overwatch and all these other things. And that became like a social outlet for her that she did kind of discovered, even though she, played very casually growing up. So even games in a competitive sense are really almost about community. And I think that's really cool. Like there's always this community aspect to many of these things, like even speed running. You would think, okay, well, single player games are single player games, but actually people take single player games and make them multiplayer. That's such a crazy idea. It's like people like taking like Dark Souls or they're taking like Zelda or whatever, and they're like, okay, let's see who can, be the best at this game. And then they create communities around speedrunning this specific game and finding the exploits. Or if you don't want to do an exploit, like how I can do like a glitchless run or whatever. It's like it's really cool just seeing how people build these communities even around these single player experiences. It's really something, see all this connection between people. So yeah, I'd say, for older generations who might not quite understand that, I actually hope that our documentary in some way can show them kind of behind the scenes, from the younger generation, what it is playing video games. It's more than just, sitting in your room isolated playing a game. It's actually probably you hanging out with your friends, on the weekend, creating creating a squad or whatever and playing Fortnite or playing Valorant or whatever. So
Hmm. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, here, my most of my family is like basically in the same time zone as you guys are, like 12 hours difference. And so something that I did not factor in when I moved here was that I was gonna miss playing games with my friends so much. Like uh Rocket League, FIFA, strategy games like Hearts of Iron we would play online, but it's just so hard to schedule that. And there's for like the latency dependent games like Rocket League and that kind of thing. It's just so hard from Central Asia to play, and I miss it so much. And I did not realize how much I was gonna miss that, because it was just an excuse to hang out with your friends, and you don't realize until you really consciously are like get that taken away from you, just how important that was in my life. Um, so I want to ask you guys to kind of play Oracle for a bit. Now that you guys have talked to so many visionaries and people working at the cutting edge of this of multiplayer technology and whatnot, like where do each of you see multiplayer games and multiplayer in general as a concept like headed in the next 5, 10 years or even beyond that? Michael, maybe you want to go first.
Hmm. That's a great question. Hmm. I feel like I just see it becoming more and more like kind of integrated with everyday life, like it's pretty much already has been, but I think with like phones and stuff getting a lot more powerful. I think people will have probably more complex social multiplayer experiences like just there, I think actually something interesting is with generative I was talking to a developer and he was saying they're implementing that into games. So games are going to become much more customized to literally your unique experience, which is really interesting. So you're going to have more options to like, if you make a choice, then I think the game will literally generate in real time, like new experiences for you. I don't know what that means, but I think that's probably going to be something definitely to consider. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's already pretty integrated with like everyday life, but I think maybe just across like different age groups, because like if you have the people that grew up with online multiplayer, when they become like kind of the older generation, and then you have like kids that basically were born into it, I think that'll be really interesting. Like it'll be
Mhm.
almost like the way that like American football is here in the States. Like everyone just, has a football team they watch or whatever. Like it's everybody, but not everyone has like an esports team or something. So like potentially, it might get to that point to where it's sort of like physical sports in a sense. But I think the biggest thing is what really piques my interest is the kind of generative AI thing. I think that's really interesting because being able to curate a more tailored like experience for you, I think that's super interesting. There's like something there.
Mm-hmm. Garrett, your
Yeah.
predictions for the future of multiplayer.
Yeah, so one thing that is really interesting to me is the expressions of multiplayer becoming more complex and more interesting and engaging. So, one of the best examples that I have is Pokemon Go. And Pokemon Go is taking a multiplayer video game that you play on your phone and creating real life interactions with different locations and geography and stuff like that. And it's just such a cool idea that people are really using it almost as just a means to connect in real life with other players and stuff. And it's just super cool that see the communities and stuff. But like they have Pokemon Fest, like the Pokemon Go Fest, like every year, and even to this day. And there's tons of people who still play this game. And it's just cool seeing all the interactions and stuff that people have, especially here in Washington. We have Nintendo up here, so there's lots of different kind of like experiences and stuff like that people go to for like Pokemon and stuff. I also think that with that games are they're probably going to continue in that direction. They're going to continue creating these fun new experiences basically for multiplayer, like people interacting in different new ways with each other. Obviously, there's a lot of people who think that VR is cool, and there's also augmented reality (AR) that's becoming more popular. I don't know if our video game outlets are going to become fully immersed. Like for VR, I think a lot of people probably get sick, like motion sickness and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's everybody's thing, but just having the different expressions, though, so many different options of how to play multiplayer or how to interact. I think it'll just increase the variety. I was talking about like speed running. That's just one outlet, and also streaming and gathering on great games that way. Obviously, Pokemon Go, but like people are going to start playing AR more, and they're going to start having these fun experiences in real life, playing with their friends, different forms of video games that we haven't seen before. And I think at the end of the day, it's always going to come back down to this one thing, I think, which is the connection between people. I think this whole social connection thing is not just the cool idea in video games. I think it's what video games are about. I honestly think that that's why so many people, even with single player games, will gravitate toward communities around those games, talking on forums or asking people for advice of, oh, how do you beat this boss in this game? Or how do you do this? Or how do you do that? It's like, it's not just like a afterthought. It's really what it's all about. So for me, I think looking in the future, I would say that there's probably going to be a continued push toward more community and more connectedness between people because that's what people really want. They want just ways to hang out with their friends or their family or whatever. And yeah, there's going to be cool, new, unique experiences, maybe even with AI, like Michael was saying. But at the end of the day, I think people are going to want this type of human, tangible connection with other people. And I think that will just be always a mainstay of what makes video games video games.
Yeah, that's I think that makes total sense, especially nowadays where it's so easy to get kind of we thought I think we thought that social media would bring people together, but my personal opinion is that it's just completely ripped a lot of people apart. Maybe with the exception of like messaging apps like WhatsApp or Discord. I think those small groups are maybe a bit more positive. But yeah, there's this human desire to just be with your friends, to be with people that like the same things, that want to watch or do the same things. Um, so yeah, interesting perspectives on the future of multiplayer games. So you guys want to film in Korea, and you've called it the birthplace of modern esports. Are there any stories there that you guys feel are essential? Like, why can't you tell this story honestly about multiplayer games without those stories?
Yeah, I can start off with that topic since there's a connection here that's actually really interesting. So, I have a friend actually who's a filmmaker who's actually lives in Korea because he was born there. He worked at one of the biggest Korean companies before their merger, which is CJ E&M. So it's CJ Entertainment and Music. They produce all sorts of different TV shows and stuff like that. And with the rise of K dramas and stuff like that nowadays, there's a lot of people know kind of about them and those companies. But one interesting thing for me is growing up, people always talked about how Korea, like, there's like, oh yeah, dude, did you see that one guy, or do you know about one guy's, is so good or whatever. You would always hear about Korean players in the competitive sports, especially because I played StarCraft. So I played StarCraft 1. That was like the game that created the whole esports in Korea. Uh, if you know about the history, they have, like we were talking about, these LAN rooms. They have PC bong is what they're called. It's like PC room. And these PC rooms have just tons and tons of computers set up. And so people would come and play together StarCraft 1. And so my friend Chris actually was sharing with me that the story about that because he actually was there and he actually was a part of that. And he's telling me about the different fun, like kind of competitive aspects of that. Like people like in the community would just gather around these PC rooms, even people you wouldn't think, like your professor or whatever, and they would come together, they would play together these video games because it became kind of like a whole fad for the whole country. And they had a huge like tournament and stuff in like Busan, which is like in the southern part of the peninsula. And it's just really cool to hear about that story. So for me, that's really inspiring. I'm like, wow, that's just a really cool story. But also, I know, from being a gamer for a lot of my life, just how important Korea is in kind of the esports scene. So having kind of that connection, I think, makes it easy to want to film there. I think that's a huge part of making this documentary in the first place is networking. I think having the connections is important to telling the right stories. And having a connection there will makes it easier. But not only that, again, I think that this particular story is really important because esports is a huge part of what drives some of the biggest games. If you look at Valorant and League of Legends, those games thrive on esports. Like that whole like basis of them is around esports. Like if that wasn't a component to them, I don't think they would be as big as they are. I really don't. I think that's kind of why they're so pervasive. So I think not telling the story of esports would be kind of a miss in the multiplayer space, but also, I think specifically, telling the story of how these things came to be is really important to us because that's the reason that we're interviewing developers and stuff is we want to hear those stories of like, oh, what was it like to how it came to what it is to today, and we want to hear that development because I think that's a lot of stuff that people are they're interested in because they're like, oh yeah, man, I do play a lot of esports games like that and stuff like that competitive. Okay, I wonder how that happens. People are curious about that, but also I think that especially because of the place that esports has in modern gaming. I think it's just really important to tell that story. So, yeah, I really want to. Ian, Micah can follow up, but I really think that it's important to capture kind of these early eras of different aspects of multiplayer, like esports, from the people who were there, from the people who were a part of those movements. I think that that's something that's not only unique from like a storytelling standpoint, especially for like a documentary. It's like getting to see the people who are like these icons of that those movements or culture is really important to really understanding the story for what it is. Um, but also, I think it's very captivating to audiences in general. I think people want to know, who, like, yeah, well, who are the people who started this thing, or who were the people who were so critical in making it the way it is now that I play games like this. I want to who made those decisions.
Yeah, no, that was really well said. I think, yeah, the biggest thing for me is why. Like, why did it get so big there? And like, I'm curious on like, is it sort of like I don't know if foreshadow is the right word. I'm not sure, but like, is it like, were they just ahead of the times, you know? And like, why is that, you know? And like, what's that mean globally? Like, in like 30, 40, 50 years, like, you know, is what they're doing going to be like really be global, you know? So, you know, that I think that's the biggest, most interesting thing to me is why. And like, is it like a cultural thing? Is it like, did they just have the technology to do it? Or like, what made them so passionate about it? Even like being able to fill up stadiums with people. I mean, this is nuts, you know? Like, you know, you think of the Super Bowl and that's just normal, right? But like they basically have those for video games. I mean, people like what? Like to watch people play video games, but I mean, we do the same thing to watch physical sports, you know? So I'm definitely interested in the why, you know? And if I may, you had a comment about social media being like kind of like I don't know what you said. Like, was it tearing people apart or being divisive? Um, I do want to mention that, you know, I feel like with video games, there definitely is a lot of toxic behavior in it as well, like really, like a lot. But I think what's so special about video games when we make that comparison with social media is like, I think when they do bring people together, it's really, really meaningful, you know? And like you bring them together for like a joint effort, you know? It's like you bring like people together, they work on a mission together, they play a game together, you know? Whereas like I think a lot of social media can be like, yeah, you're bringing people with like the same ideals, you know, but sometimes you can be in like kind of an echo chamber and sometimes you only hear what you want to hear, you know, and it really can be divisive and I think tear people apart. But I think what makes video games so special is they really just I mean, it brings everyone together just for like the cause of like just playing the game and just for the love of a game. And I think that's really cool. So I just wanted to bounce onto that again. So
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. I was I was actually curious to know if you guys were going to try to tackle sort of the toxicity that does happen in some gaming communities and maybe certain types of games, certain groups within those games. Is that something that's gonna be touched on in the film, or are you guys focusing more on like the positive connection, or is it really just about connection in general? Both of those, positive and negative.
Yeah. I think we have to, to like do it justice, to do the story justice. I think honestly, we're probably not going to focus on it a whole lot because we just kind of want to see like how has multiplayer gaming permeated into society is kind of the main thing. But we should talk about toxicity because when you have something that's so integrated into society, you're going to have a reflection of just where humanity is at the time. So we'll probably look at it in that regard of like, hey, this is just a reflection of humans. So it's going to be messy. It's going to be pretty rough and pretty dark. But what's really cool is that we've talked to developers a lot on how they combat that. Like, what are some that things that they actually implement into their games to kind of stop people from being as toxic as they could be? And Garrett, if you want to dive into that, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Just like Mike said, it's like with humans being connected in such a immersive way like this, it's like there's always going to be some sort of like darkness there. But I think the light shines a lot brighter than the darkness, especially in video games. I think that's the positives far outweigh the negatives. Like people have just incredible stories about how they like one of the people we're talking to at ArenaNet mentioned how there's people who were in the hospital and they connected with people through video games, through their game, through Guild Wars 2, with other people, and that's what really gave them like that continued like drive to keep getting better, almost because they had like hope. It gave them hope in a way, uh, having this social outlet, and those types of stories I think really outweigh the negative components. But like Michael was saying, even with negative things, there is a push to try and resolve that to some degree, or at least mitigate it. And one of the things that Tony, which is another person that we were speaking to, he's a developer. He was at 343, and he mentioned how in video games like League of Legends and stuff, they have like the tribunal system and stuff that they had before, and they developers constantly trying to push and create new types of systems to deal with toxicity in a more effective way. And you can see this is probably especially true for the biggest games because when we have more and more people interacting, there's going to be more and more instances of things like this happening that are negative. So we have to figure out how to deal with that because developers can only handle like personally so many things. And if you're trying to monitor a game like World of Warcraft, oh my gosh, there's just so many people. It's like it's going to be very difficult to monitor all the toxicity. So I think the technology is actually surprisingly a part that plays a huge role in helping the social to become better here because technology in a way is as people create better and better systems for not only identifying toxicity but also basically penalizing toxicity in games. I think that'll only become more effective, basically, in trying to mitigate how often these types of things happen. I heard I don't know who said it, but there's one of the developers we were talking to was talking about how even there might be some types of systems that supposedly in some games where they basically put toxic people in the same lobby with each other and let people who are more polite play with each other. So
I love that
there's
idea.
different ways of kind of letting people, figure out how to play the game at least in a way that's not going to ruin everybody else's experience.
hmm Yeah, I mean, me personally in Rocket League, I think they tackled that problem just very simply. They make it so much easier to chat just where they're pre-selected chats like nice shot and, great save and that kind of thing. And then if you want to type something in, you gotta like get your keyboard and type it in and then you can just turn off chat entirely. So it'll be interesting to watch your guys' movie and to kind of see the different ways that they're tackling that. So, well, to wrap up, why don't you tell us all a little bit about the Kickstarter? Maybe what you guys intend for backers to receive, what their support would unlock, and how close are you guys to your finish line for this film in general.
Yeah. I do want to mention one more thing on the toxic thing. Sorry.
Sure, sure,
I
sure.
think
Go ahead.
another really cool thing for us is that we really want to like kind of humanize developers with this film. So I think a lot of times developers can get a lot of heat online and a lot like I mean it's Thomas Stone. He's a guy that we interviewed. He's done like Cast Minor Z and stuff. And he was saying that I mean he would get like death threats and stuff like online. It's just pretty crazy. So I think our hope, is to, yeah, humanize developers. They're just gamers, most of them. They're just like the players, but they just got into making games. So I think that's really cool as we get to kind of, pull back the curtain, show the behind the scenes, and just show that they're just normal people, just doing the best they can, There are obviously bad people in every aspect, but I just wanted to mention that for sure, because that's kind of a big part for us. But in terms of Kickstarter and whatnot, I think kind of, how far along are we? The thing with documentaries is that, I mean, we have a decent amount of interviews so far, but what we're really hoping to do with the Kickstarter is to be able to like hone in on particular areas. Because in the beginning of our production, we kind of just said, hey, if you work in video games, we want to talk to you. So we would interview, like, most of what we have are like game designers, and people in that aspect. But we want to dive into more of the like social side as well. Like we want to get streamers, people that are into esports. We have one esports coach, which was cool, but even more than that would be awesome. Um, I want to talk to like psychologists. I mean, we have a therapist, so that was really dope. But if we can like dive into that a little bit as well. But I want the hope for me for the Kickstarter is to be able to get more focused with some of our interviews. And we want to be able to capture really compelling visuals too, like B-roll. So if we can go to events, different like gaming like expos and things like that. But yeah, I think that sums it up for me, Garrett.
So to know a little bit more about the Kickstarter. So yeah, one of the main goals is to help us to obviously dial in on specific topics so we can focus more on actually building the story out that we've discovered along the way. We have some aspects of that already, which we've talked about today, but we also, I think that getting community support will really make that super possible. I think that's really essential to what we're doing. But more about in terms of the campaign itself, yeah, we are really close, I think, to actually hopefully making a feature film. Our goal is to once we get funded to try and finish up all the shooting and stuff in probably 7 months, and then we'll spend time trying to finish it out, and then we'll try to get it on streaming services. So we're looking for probably a year after successful funding. In terms of tiers and rewards and all that stuff, just about the campaign itself, um, we really wanted to kind of hone in and focus on that concept of community. So, at I think the second lowest tier, we have kind of like a developer diary perk. So basically, you can come along with us for the ride, and join our Discord community, and basically just follow along as we talk to the community and do like Q&As and stuff like that, and just share about the actual filmmaking process so people feel like they're really a part of the team who is making the film, because obviously their support is super pivotal in making this even possible. And in terms of like mid tiers, there's different packages with like merchandise and stuff like that. So like t-shirts and stuff. And one of the cool perks that we came up with was like, what if we did an esports jersey? Oh, that'd be cool. Okay, let's do esports jersey around the rise of multiplayer for people. And so that's one of the cool concepts that we came out with. And yeah, and the highest tiers for people who want to support us in that way. We have very unique, cool perks and experiences like coming out to the premiere, giving you guys tickets to come see it in person in an actual theater. Just lots of really cool things. So once that goes live, you'll be able to see all the different details of that, and hopefully, people will join us for the ride. Come have fun and see the rise of multiplayer together and see what it really becomes. So, thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. This sounds like an amazing project, honestly, and I am looking forward personally to watching it. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I know it's 6 a.m. there now 7 for you guys. So I really appreciate you getting up early and doing this with me. This has been really, really fun. It's the rise of multiplayer as the film coming together right now. Their Kickstarter is launching in early September of this year, 2025, probably in the next few weeks. We'll put a link to it in the show notes once it's out. Michael, Garrett, thank you guys so much for hanging out, and best of luck finishing up this awesome sounding movie.
Oh, thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to
Yeah.
meet you.